Hi, and welcome to this week's edition of the Mezzetti Show. I'm your host. My guest today is Betsy Ritter, who is the State Department of Aging Commissioner. Betsy, welcome.
Good to see you, Pete.
Good to see you too. How have you been?
Great.
Good. So I was wondering, we're going to first start off with a little bit of history on the agency and the organization. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about what the organization is and what you guys do?
I would be happy to.
All right.
So Connecticut, you may remember, although you're a little younger, you may not remember.
Yeah, maybe.
For many, many decades, until about 1991, Connecticut had its own agency on aging.
Okay.
And in 1991, Governor Ritter, in his wisdom, took the State Department on Aging and several other of the smaller agencies and combined them into the Department on Social Services. So he did that in an effort, he felt that that would streamline Connecticut's government.
Okay.
And at the time, the commissioner was soon to become State Senator Edith Prague.
All right.
A very familiar
There's
name.
a name I know.
Absolutely. And Edith, of course, spent her career working with the elderly, with Connecticut's senior citizens, and really is quite the spokesperson and advocate for them.
Okay.
It took, she would say, it took lots of people, many, many years to once again see an independent Department on Aging. And Governor Malloy in 2013 reestablished the agency as an independent agency. Okay. He did the same for several others, the Department of Housing, Rehabilitation Services, and a few others. And so the department was reestablished, and he appointed Edith Prague once again to be commissioner. Okay. She served until mid-year in 2014. Okay. And in January of 2015, Governor Malloy appointed me to be the next commissioner of the Department on Aging.
You like it?
I do very much.
Do you?
Yes, I do.
So the Department of Aging, what exactly do you guys do? You
might know that at the federal level, the nation's Older Americans Act, which was first established in 1965, has very specific requirements for states and the way states manage that federal funding that they're able to pass on to take care of our senior citizens. All right. One of the requirements is that there be a specifically designated state unit on aging. Okay. And so Connecticut's Department of Aging is that state unit. We administer all of the federal Older Americans Act money that comes into Connecticut. We are the fiduciary for it, and we then contract to provide the programming and the services to our senior citizens through our senior centers, through a variety of organizations all over the state of Connecticut.
And what are some of those organizations?
The main organizations that probably are the most familiar to you and to your audience are the area agencies on aging. Okay. And again, the federal Older Americans Act requires states to operate through area agencies on aging that cover the entire state. We have 5 in Connecticut.
And where we have 5 in the state. Are they all local, or are they branched out all over the state?
They cover the entire state.
Okay, good.
And each one has about 1/5 of the population for the state of Connecticut.
That's a good thing.
So you may probably be familiar with some of the services. The most common ones that come to mind are Meals on Wheels. Sure. Those are run with federal Older Americans Act money through the area agencies on aging, often in conjunction with towns' senior centers, community centers, other organizations, churches, and then of course home-delivered meal service.
Right, exactly.
That's one of the many services that we're able to provide.
What are some of the other services that you're able to provide that our viewers and listeners don't know about?
The most common, next one that would come to mind probably is called the Choices Program. Okay. The federal program, the Federal Older Americans Act, requires states to have what it's called a SHIP programs. Okay. And that means state health insurance programs. Okay. Those are counseling programs to help Medicare recipients, Medicare beneficiaries in the state, take best advantage of not just Medicare, but all of the associated and sort of ancillary programs that are part of the Medicare program.
Okay.
Those are run in Connecticut also through our area agencies on aging. We call that CHOICES.
Okay.
That's the acronym that's been used in Connecticut for several decades now to talk about that counseling program.
All right.
Many, many people are able to talk to CHOICES volunteers
Okay.
at their local senior centers.
Really?
Through the area agencies on aging, at their offices, at a variety, again, of access agencies around the state, and find that counseling invaluable. As the Medicare program has become much more complex
Right.
over the decades since the program was first passed, there are a lot of opportunities for Medicare beneficiaries to make choices about the programs that could serve them and their circumstances the best. And it's a little complicated. It involves a lot of planning. CHOICES counselors are an excellent resource for people to take advantage of.
And if people want more information on the CHOICES program, I'm assuming that information is available on your website?
Absolutely available on our website. I would be happy to give you the toll-free number right now that people can call. Anyone needing any of this information or any of the other services from the Department on Aging can call us at 866 218 6631. And that's toll-free in the state of Connecticut.
All right. And if you call the phone number, what other information can you get?
We are able to offer a lot of health counseling programs, education, as well as self-management programs for chronic diseases, most particularly fall prevention. We also have access to information and routes to help people find help for home and community-based services that can keep them in their homes. The overarching mission of the agency is to empower our senior citizens to the best decision-making to lead the lives as independent as possible for as long as possible at the homes that they prefer.
Exactly.
And so we're able to help them find those services, in many cases provide the counseling and the information that can help make them more affordable for them and help them come up with appropriate planning.
All right. One thing we didn't talk about, which we probably should, is the wonderful staff that you have.
Thank you. I have fabulous staff.
Okay.
I'm very fortunate. Both when Commissioner Prague came back as commissioner, the first thing that she said to me when she knew that I was interested in the job was she was very quick to explain that we have fabulous staff. Anybody who gets one of the employees of the State Department on Aging on the telephone will be very pleased at the service that they receive.
Really? Okay. Now, as far as you and I were talking earlier when we were talking before we came in tonight about, I guess there is something regarding Social Security numbers and Medicare cards?
Yes.
Let's talk about it. What is it?
You got it.
All right.
And this has been the product of about 15 years of work. And I must say, it's good news. It's going to take a little while. You may know that the Medicare program, of course, issues cards to all of its beneficiaries. And those cards enable beneficiaries to give them to your doctors that accesses the Medicare program for all of your medical services. However, when the program first started, everyone was given a number. And guess what? The Social Security number is still today the Medicare number for everyone, and it is printed on those Medicare cards.
Oh, no.
Fortunately, and I talked about it really has been about 15 years of discussion and work. The Congress is finally going to provide the funding to change that.
Really?
And it's really important for people because of the terrible opportunities that are out there for that information to be stolen and misused.
If somebody gets a hold of your Medicare card, it's got your Social Security number on it, I can pretty much do some damage.
Name, birth date, and Social Security number are the keys to the universe.
Exactly.
That is correct.
Now, as far as implementing this whole Social Security plan, how long do you think it's going to take for everything to roll out? And
I wish I knew exactly.
all right.
We've really received a lot of calls.
Okay.
I would like to mention one thing, though.
Please,
A lot of people ask, what should I do to keep this information safe?
Right.
And because it is very valuable information in the wrong hands.
Right.
And that's important. And we really advise people, don't carry your Social Security card with you at all times. Keep it in a safe and secure place in your home. When you're going to need it, bring it with you to your doctor,
Right.
but don't keep it with you at all times.
Right.
And I think that's pretty generally acknowledged to be the most prudent advice.
Exactly.
To try to at least not make it easy
Right.
for this kind of an unfortunate theft to occur.
Exactly.
I think it's going to take, I've heard numbers of about 3 to 5 years,
Okay.
maybe a little longer.
Okay.
Beneficiaries do not have to do anything. They will be contacted by the Social Security Administration and given their new cards. Until then, the old card does everything they need it to do.
The old card still works, and
Yes.
you can still access all of your benefits and all of your information with the old card.
That is correct.
Okay. And as far as like you and I were talking just a second ago about keeping your card in a safe place. Obviously, that's a pretty good idea, because you don't want something happening and then your card falling into the wrong hands, and then
Well, it can be devastating.
Right.
And some of the saddest cases we hear about come from something like that.
Please.
Another related issue that we've become increasingly and rapidly involved in, actually, has to do with senior citizens' abuse and neglect and financial exploitation. You might know that in 2014, Governor Malloy established by executive order Connecticut's Coalition for Elder Justice, and that is a big part of what we do at the Department on Aging. We house that effort, and it's a truly public-private coalition. So we have been working with people from all sectors, from the business community, from the public, from government, state, local, municipal, aspects of the nonprofit world, to work with putting together programs and help that we can get to help people avoid a lot of the pitfalls that make them vulnerable to financial exploitation. It's a sad, sad situation to understand that many seniors are increasingly vulnerable. And even more sad, often it can be from within the family or without the family. And we've been working particularly with a very supportive banking community and the financial services community. They've been wonderful. And I think that ultimately we're going to make some real progress at trying to eliminate or push back on this, because it's a real scourge for the state of Connecticut.
Would you mind sticking around for another segment?
I'd be happy to.
We'll be right
Thank you,
back.
Pete.
When I was 6, I had one thing on my mind. When I was 6, my days were spent playing basketball every chance I could. When I was 6, my dream was to make it to the NBA. When I was 6, my mom had a stroke. I'm Paul George, and I want you to learn the signs of a stroke fast. F-A-S-T. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. Because the sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in their recovery. Protect the ones you love. Spot a stroke. F-A-S-T. Fast.
And welcome back to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. I'm your host, sitting here with Commissioner Betsy Ritter. Commissioner, welcome back.
Thank you, Pete.
No problem. Thanks for coming down.
Always a pleasure.
So during the first segment, we were talking about elder exploitation. I was wondering if maybe we can pick up the conversation that we had prior to the break.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I mentioned to you that in 2014, our governor, Governor Malloy, signed an executive order establishing Connecticut's Coalition for Elder Justice.
Sure.
And that is a public-private coalition from all sectors, really, of Connecticut communities, not just the senior citizens. So we have folks from the business community, the nonprofit world, churches, community groups, all sorts of organizations at the table to talk about issues of physical abuse and senior citizens, but also financial abuse and exploitation. And it's been particularly interesting to work with really what's becoming an increasingly supportive group from the financial community.
Okay.
Banks, financial advisors, people that work with seniors in their planning, but have worked really hard to understand that many of them are increasingly vulnerable to this type of exploitation.
Right.
Some of the saddest stuff is that to understand that sometimes it's members of the family, and
Really?
it's very difficult, but rewarding to think that Connecticut has really stepped up in a big way to kind of push back against this scourge in our communities. And I'm really hopeful that we're making some good progress. There's been a lot of conversation about bringing more education to employees in these sectors. And as I said, these business leaders have really stepped forward in really positive ways to get to work on it. Something interesting.
Sure.
Senator Blumenthal has took a look at this work and is working on legislation at the federal level to try to bring a greater awareness and spur more states to take actions similar to what we're seeing happen in Connecticut.
Really?
So that's encouraging.
That is.
It's interesting to think that, well, to understand that, of course, these problems that we're seeing here are not unique to Connecticut in any way. But if there are things that we can do that we can then bring to other states and receive, it works two ways, great strategies from around the country,
Okay.
I think that we really can perhaps keep our seniors a lot safer.
Exactly. And as far as senior safety goes, is there anything that picks out in your mind as far as trying to keep information safe and what they should do to keep their information safe?
We talked about the Medicare cards.
Right, yep.
And how important it is to understand that they contain your Social Security number, and that it's important to keep that in a safe and secure place, not with you all the time unless you're going to need it.
Exactly.
That information truly is the key to the kingdom, and it's just discouraging to understand often how available it is.
Exactly.
For seniors, it's I know many people are advised to always have it with you, and but it is not safe,
No.
in our opinion. And I think the best advice is to keep those things safe. There's a lot of the world of financial, particularly documents and precautions and safety issues around that. There's a lot of opportunity there for people perhaps maybe get a little forgetful or just leave something in the wrong place. That increasingly I think we need to be more and more careful of.
Actually, before we move on to the next topic, we talked about it during the first segment, bring it up again for viewers and listeners that are just joining us, about having the Medicare card
Yes.
with your Social Security number on.
Yep. So as we said, that number currently is on everybody's Medicare card. But the federal government has figured out, and it's been a long time coming,
All right.
that this really is something that needs to be changed, and it will be changed.
Okay.
What people need to understand is they will be contacted by the Social Security Administration
Okay, right.
with their new cards. And until then, the current card works.
Still works. Okay,
And
good.
so
Good.
that is, don't let that hold anybody back.
Oh, God,
Hang
no.
on to that old card and keep using it until it's replaced.
Exactly.
And it's estimated, I think, somewhere between 3 and 5 years. Don't hold me to that.
All right, I'm not gonna
That's
hold
what
that
I've
to you.
heard.
All right.
It's a big job.
It is.
I do think that going forward, probably they will start also with new cards for
Right.
new beneficiaries. will probably see it first.
You think so?
I hope so.
Wow.
That will be me, so.
I was gonna.
Thank you, Pete. Yes, that will be me next year.
No, that can't be.
Oh, well,
No.
you're generous. Thank you.
No problem. And I guess we were also talking about the first segment. How did you become Commissioner of Aging for the state of Connecticut?
I spent the previous 10 years as a state representative. I represented Waterford and Montville for 10 years in the state legislature.
I think I knew that.
Yeah, when I did that, I spent a large amount of that time chairing the Committee on Public Health and worked on a lot of these issues with the senior community and a lot of issues around senior residential care and health care issues. And this past January, Governor Malloy appointed me to be the next commissioner. So I'm very excited about that. You probably also might remember that I succeeded. The former commissioner was Edith Prague, who is known throughout the state as an unflinching and constant advocate for our seniors.
Oh, definitely. And before you were state representative, you did something too.
I did. And I know that we also share something in common with that because I worked at the town of Waterford. I was the tax collector for 7 years. And I often, as you know, tell people,
about that.
There's no better way to thicken your skin up for a life in public service than to be the tax collector. I loved that job.
I think I know one.
Yes, I think you do too.
Maybe.
That would be your mom.
That would be.
Yep, I know her too.
And as far as your website goes, what types of information can people find on the websites? And
we've been working actually hard and will continue to work hard to add and expand the information that we have available. The first thing I'd like to do is, if I could, once again, leave our toll-free number out there.
Go for it. Yeah, absolutely.
We can be reached at any time in state, toll-free, at 866-218-6631.
Okay.
And I would encourage people to give us a call if they have questions.
Exactly.
Often it's we can refer people to the correct place to get their question answered quickly and efficiently, and we're always happy to hear from people all over the state. We also have some pretty detailed descriptions of programs and services first, the ones that we offer through the agency, but can direct people through the website also to other places in state government.
What types of services or programs do you offer through the agency?
You probably know us best because of the meals. Meals on Wheels, congregate meals, all of that. We contract with our area agencies on aging all over the state so that the access to those meals, either in a group setting, say at a senior center or community center, or home delivered meals for people that need it. We also have information on finding services, home and community-based services for people to keep them in their homes, help them stay there as long as possible, help people understand chronic diseases and self-management that they can engage in to help themselves stay at home and live independently for as long as possible. I hope you're getting the theme here.
Oh, totally. Oh, yeah.
Really, the mission of the agency is to empower our older adults in Connecticut to be able to make the decisions and live independently as long as they can.
Exactly. Now, as far as what other information would you like to share with our viewers and our listeners about the organization?
Many folks, I will say, also know us because in the agency we have the state long-term care ombudsman. And I know, fancy name. So,
what is it?
And again, this is a program that comes from federal government, but Connecticut has perhaps been quite diligent at bringing this service to our residents of nursing homes, assisted living, and community living facilities. And that would be residential care homes. And in Connecticut, our long-term care ombudsman, as I said, is part of the State Agency on Aging, and then we have regional offices. The ombudsman's job is to advocate for and preserve the rights and the safety and health and welfare of residents of these facilities. for example, nursing homes.
Okay.
And that's a pretty extensive network that we maintain, and we are very busy working with folks all around the state.
Really? And some of the other programs that you guys offer?
We are fortunate in Connecticut in that we have had access to other pilot programming that keeps us able to offer multiple screenings and self-management programs to help people with issues. Depression is another one I have not mentioned yet that we're really kind of getting going in a new way. Fall prevention, and we manage programs both independently and in conjunction with the Department of Public Health on fall prevention, and to continuously advocate for our folks as they deal with the transitions that are important as they age.
Okay. Now, one thing we didn't talk about during the first segment is the White House Committee on Aging Forum.
Oh, the White House Conference on Aging.
Yes.
This year, 2015,
Right.
is a White House Conference on Aging year.
Okay.
They happen periodically and generally every 10 years or thereabouts. And this year, I'm trying to think if this was the 5th, 6th, 7th, can't quite remember.
All right, that's fine.
This year, it was organized a little bit differently, and the White House conducted 5 regional forums.
Okay.
And asked states and all sorts of interested parties to attend the regional forums.
All right.
And then the information from those regional forums was taken to Washington, D.C. and discussed in one final forum. Prior to the regional forums, my agency conducted a local forum, Connecticut-centered forum, in Hartford, and invited not just agencies, but citizens, community groups, and interested parties from around the state to come to that to talk about issues about aging in Connecticut. We took that when we went to the regional forum in Boston, and then ultimately passed that information on to Washington, D.C.
Before we say goodnight, website for the agency one more time.
First, I'm going to give you the toll-free number.
Oh, yeah, go ahead,
because
phone
that's
number.
even more important.
That's right.
866-218-6631.
All right.
And you can find us, this is more complicated, at www.ct.gov/aging services.
Betsy Ritter, I want to
Thank
thank you
you.
for coming down again, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Always a pleasure, Pete.
All right.
Thank you.
On behalf of Betsy Ritter, I'm Pete Mezzetti. Thanks, good night, and we'll see you next week.